We are live. But before we get started for tonight's discussion, we want to make sure we have all of our platforms included. Again, this is an all inclusive platform here. All right. I think I see green check marks across the board. Looks like we are good. Welcome in, everyone, to another installment of the Orange and Blue View. I am your host here, Ron White. On that side of me, joined by my co host, Mr. Dylan Vaughn Arks. Dylan, how are you doing today on this nice Saturday?
I'm doing fantastic, Ron. You know, the weather up in my neck of the woods is actually getting cold and feels like it's actually wintertime. We're getting ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas after that. So just doing awesome and happy to talk Broncos on another Saturday night.
Yes, same as we were saying in the chat while I was telling you here in Georgia, it's been warm, which I guess I can't complain too much, but I kind of want it to feel like like fall, have some sort of semblance of fall, but I'll take what we can get. So again, welcome everyone. We're going to talk about tomorrow's matchup of your Denver Broncos facing the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we do that, we want to see who all is in the chat tonight. And got Mike S coming in. Thank you, Mike. Always good to see you, my guy. He says, "What's up, Dylan, Ron, Scott, and Broncos country? What's up with you, Mike? Hopefully you are doing well, and it's good to see you, my guy." See who else we
Oh,
have
and
here.
Ron, before we jump to the next person, just to interject a little house cleaning here. We are having some issues connecting
Yes.
to Facebook, so it might just take a few minutes for you Facebook folks. So just stick with us. We're trying to work out some kinks here.
Yes. Thanks. Yes, we are having some. So just bear with us, guys. Thank you for your patience on that. And Mike S coming in here with more about tomorrow's game. Hopefully, offense, defense, and special teams and coaching do great. Yes, yes, those we're hoping that, Mike. That's definitely going to be important for tomorrow's matchup. All right, and then we have C Chang coming in. Thank you. It's good to see you. He says, "Let's go. Broncos win tomorrow." Yes, C Chang. We hope that is the end result for tomorrow. Thank you for coming in. And we got 69 Skater Mike, Wild Rift. Evening, gents. Evening to you as well. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. And Mr. Todd Osendorf coming in as always. Thank you, Todd. I know we like to see you, my guy. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country." Good evening to you as well. So, Dylan, before we get started with tonight's matchup for tomorrow, I want to kind of ask you kind of your thoughts on a few developments from this week as it pertains to Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning. So, as you know, the Broncos did um, provide Jonathan Cooper with that contract extension, and for Baron Browning, he is now an Arizona Cardinal. So what are your thoughts on the recent transactions with the Broncos this week?
Well, the pass rush for the Broncos has made like several strides, right? Obviously, they're blitzing a lot, but they're getting some pressure. Nick Benito, he's grown a lot as a pass rusher, even shored up a little bit in the run game. Obviously, still got a little ways to go there, but all signs are pointing to him growing and developing. And Jonathan Cooper has been awesome. He's definitely outkicked his coverage in terms of being a seventh round pick
Mm-hmm.
into a starting pass rusher. And he well deserved the contract that he got. You want to keep guys around and show, hey, you work hard, you stick with it. You're gonna get another contract with this team, and then you got a young Jonah Ellis who's gonna need some more snaps. So it does make sense to trade Baron Browning away. Obviously, injury prone, very injury
Mm-hmm.
prone. He's had flashes and he's been solid here and there, but you can't really justify keeping him around when you got young guys like Ellis, like I mentioned, or DeAndre Tillman even.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it sucks to see him go. It's a guy that I was really excited for when the Broncos drafted, and very explosive player. But you can't stay healthy, and honestly, to get anything for him was kind of a miracle. A 6th round pick. I mean, yeah, that's chump change, but you take it. Those are some flyers there later in the draft. So I wish him well in Arizona. Hope he can stay healthy and have a solid career over there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with everything you said, particularly with Jonathan Cooper. I just think it was time for the Broncos to just go ahead and get this done. And it was a pretty solid contract. It looks like it wasn't, too much. Pretty much at a little undervalue there. So that's a good sign. And you're right, he very much outkicked his coverage. Um, a good valued leader in the locker room. And just a talented overall good dude. And it's just so good that the Broncos were able to, you know, award, one of their own. Um, so I'm excited for him. And then as far as Baron Browning is concerned, I just think it's time for a fresh start. Baron Browning has all the talent in the world. I was very excited when they drafted him. But that injury bug, it bites him every year, it seems. And so, you know, kudos to him. Wish him well. With that fresh start in Arizona. But yeah, the young guys, Nick Bonito, Jonah Ellis, like you mentioned, DeAndre Tillman. Time for snaps of those guys to increase and see what this pass rush can become, you know, with those guys playing those snaps. So very excited with both moves. Very happy with both moves. All right. And then let's see who else we have here in the chat. We got the Papa Bear himself, David McElrath, coming in. Thank you, David. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country." Sticking with that record prediction I see there. Hashtag 10-7. Love it, love it, love it. Hashtag let's go Bo. Yes, David, again, thank you. And yeah, 10-7. Very, very achievable. Hopefully the Broncos can get the dub this week to stay on path for that 10-7 record. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you for coming in again, my guy.
Yeah, David, thanks for coming in as always. And yeah, I do. I love the optimism because, I mean, especially after coming off that butt whooping against the Ravens, man. Oh my God. I mean, I know I picked them to lose, but what I think I said 21-20, 1 point game. But that's what I was worried about. Uh, they hadn't played a quarterback like Lamar Jackson in tandem with Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers. So rough game, but they have a chance to get back on the horse, as it were, against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and just how that game unfolded, Dylan. It was, they went down, got the touchdown with Bo Nix being the receiver. And, then blink of an eye, it was 31-10, and it was just like, well, it's so the Ravens offense, man, it's unstoppable. When you have a quarterback like a Lamar Jackson who's playing out of his mind right now, and you have number 22 who is also unstoppable. Now, the Broncos tried to hold him in check somewhat to a degree, Derrick Henry, but man, when that team's clicking on all cylinders, it's such a hard team to stop. Um, but I say all that to say the Broncos did have opportunities. I mean, Broncos were going against the last ranked pass defense. But it just goes to show you, I left that game, singing the same tune that the Broncos in the offseason, Dylan, need to look at more help around Bo. Receivers who can get open, receivers who can get separation, playmakers, weapons. That's what is missing from this offense. And so if that can be a point of focus in the offseason, I think that'll help out Bo Nix tremendously. But I thought Bo did well for the most part. He looked good. But again, it's just everything around him that started to crumble. In addition to that defense, now that goes to the question here that's at the topic here for tonight. So for tomorrow's matchup, what unit needs to step up in your opinion? Do you think it's the Broncos offense that needs to step up, or do you think the Broncos defense needs to step up?
So I obviously the defense had a god awful game last week, and the Chiefs' offense hasn't been like a powerhouse like we're accustomed to, right? But they still got some weapons. You know, you got Worthy, Travis Kelsey, and now D Hop, who's looking good for them, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
and add Kareem Hunt in there as well. Patrick Mahomes is a little hobbled. I think this defense is going to be able to get after him. I think they have a bounce back game, and they're definitely going to get more pass rush than they did last week. And Mahomes can run, we know that, but he's no Lamar Jackson. So, with having that in mind and the defense bouncing back, I think it's the offense, unfortunately, I say, that needs to step up just because this Chiefs defense is so good. Despite, you got Trent McDuffie out there at corner, you got Chris Jones on the defensive line, and those two enough make this defense formidable. But Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator, probably the best in the game right now. Going against a rookie quarterback, and like you mentioned, Bo looked really good last week, but not a great passing defense. Obviously, between the 20s, the offense looked great. Once you get to the red zone, like you mentioned, you just don't have the weaponry to make a difference in that area. I mean, hey, where's Parham at, man? Let's get a big tight end in there somewhere. Let's elevate him. Try something new.
A.T. Perry.
A.T. Perry, something, man. Like, we just need something there. But yeah, unfortunately, I think it's the offense that has to step up, because the way to beat the Chiefs, you got to score points. And this is a Chiefs team that isn't like blowing up the scoreboard like we've seen in years past. But it's hard to see it happening for me just because of the lack of weaponry and just how good that defense has been. We don't really know what our wide receivers are going to step up. Our running backs have been woefully inconsistent. Estimate's supposed to get more carries. Hopefully he can hold on to the ball. That's been a problem for him and Javonte, but that's the unit that needs to step up, the offense. But can they? I'm pretty concerned against this Chiefs defense.
Yeah, this Chiefs defense is they're very stout. Pulling up some rankings here. Their total defense, they're number 5. So they're only allowing 293 yards total, 16 touchdowns allowed. Passing defense, they're about middle of the pack, so 15. Rushing defense, they're stout as well, to what you just said. So they're number 3 with only allowing 83 yards on average, and 5 total rush touchdowns. Scoring defense, they're number 4. So that's a pretty stout unit. Spags does have that defensive unit playing extremely well, and I'm with you that the offense has to step up more. I mean, I think we've been saying that all year. Um, the Broncos defense, I take that as an anomaly. What happened last week? You were just going up against a far superior opponent. And another, an MVP candidate again, and Lamar. Well, 2 of them with Derrick Henry. And just how the Ravens play offense, it was a tall task to start with. So I think the defense will bounce back this week. I'm not too concerned there, but you're going against an equally talented defense in the Chiefs, and the Broncos have to try to find a way, to move the ball against it. I think just about every level, Dylan, up front. We know up front with Karlaftis and Chris Jones, you know, it's it's very stout. And the linebacking core as well. You have Drew Tranquil, Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton. And that three linebacker look, it's hard to run the ball against the three of them. It's very difficult to run the ball against the three of them. And I think that's probably why, because I think moving forward, they're going to face a lot of big fronts and a lot of inside linebackers with size, and that's probably why you hear that comment, Sean Payton saying that you'll see more Audric Estime
Mhm.
because you need a running back with size. Now, Javante, he really just hasn't been going as you expected him to go. And you're right, Audric Estime needs to clean up the fumbling. You know that's a bit of a concern. But you saw him when he came in last week. I think he was averaging around 6 or 7 yards a carry, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
If you can hold on to the ball, I think that'll be somewhat of a benefit or a value in getting the running game going and getting this offense going. I also see that in order to kind of get them out that look, you probably want to get Chenal and Tranquil more in pass coverage. So you don't have an Alvin Kamara on this team, unfortunately. And you saw when Sean Payton was in New Orleans, Alvin Kamara was such a talented receiver that you can kind of throw some of those defenses out of that look and put the inside linebackers in pass coverage. And I
Mhm.
think that might be something that the Broncos can do. Will Jaleel be that guy they use? Maybe you use Javante in some of those as well. Um, and I think that that's kind of the question. And then you also, going back to the defensive side for Vance Joseph, you want to make sure that you contain Kelsey as much as you can. You see Kelsey's getting hot. I know it started off slow, and now you see Kelsey getting more into some of these isolated routes. Obviously, you mentioned the addition of Nuke of Hopkins. So that it's going to be a little of a tall task for this defense as well. But I do think this defense um, can make some hay. But again, it's just the Broncos' offense. What can they do in the running game and in the passing game? Right? We know that McDuffie's going to take on Cortland Sutton, but who else will step up? Do we see Troy Franklin connect on a deep ball? You know, I like Vele. I think Vele is probably good moving the chains type of guy, but that I think that connection of Franklin and Bo Nix needs to happen at least a few times in this game in order for the Broncos to also have success.
Absolutely. And Franklin just needs to catch the ball, quite frankly. Um, it's just like that deep ball last. Well, I guess uh, Bo Nix kind of overthrew him there, but it leaves me wondering, would he have caught it anyway? it's he needs to work on that jugs machine for sure. But like you mentioned, someone's got to step up here. And when you look around after Cortland Sutton, it's not very inspiring. Mims hasn't gotten much play whatsoever. You see Franklin getting more snaps than him on offense as a rookie. So that says a lot about what the Broncos think about him. Uh, in the tight end room, I mean, and the Chiefs have struggled a little bit against the tight ends, but you don't really have anyone there that's going to make them worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, gosh, and that's why, it's tough because that is the unit that needs to step up, but they have so much against them playing a great defense and the lack of weapons. It's going to be a really tough game for the Broncos, I think. And could it be close? Sure. I think the Broncos defense is going to show up, but man, it's just tough for me to see. It's probably going to be a pretty ugly game, honestly, and especially with all the crowd noise as well that factors in with a young quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, for sure. All right, let's see who else we have in the chat. Got Rodney Garcia coming in. Thank you, Rodney. Appreciate you coming in, my guy. He says moving on from Tim Patrick was a huge mistake, and keeping Lil Jordan Humphrey, who's now a liability with the drop passes and fumbles. Yeah, Rodney, you bring up a great point here. Sean Payton's boy is now failing him. um, you know, not I think in some of those more crucial moments, Dylan, when he's dropping passes like that tip that interception last week, you know, you're right that they were very he's very liable now, and it's causing issues for it's causing some issues now. you know Obviously the reason why he's in there is because he's the one that knows Peyton's offense the best.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think you need to give those snaps to Vele. I don't, because when Vele's on the field, I like what I see. Vele's a very good receiver, turning out to be a good find. Um, so I'm with you, Rodney, in the sense that the loss of Tim Patrick is huge now, and especially now that you're seeing what the Lions are doing with him, and how he's performing on the Detroit Lions. It kind of it does make you miss him a bit, but I do think, yeah, that it's now time to turn to Vele. Again, maybe promoting A.T. Perry, just to kind of see what these guys can do. Again, we're seeing good things from Vele, and I think the more you can put Troy Franklin out there, I think that'll help to kind of develop that chemistry with Knicks as well. But yeah, Ronnie, that the liability for Lil Jordan Humphrey, it's a big concern here for sure.
Yeah, and it's devastating. It's costing the team drives. It's if he's not fumbling, he's bricking it off his hands, and it's terrible. We need someone else out there. And yeah, it would have been nice to have Tim Patrick here, but obviously for whatever reason they want to keep him. He's not putting up video game numbers or nothing in Detroit, but he's a role player there,
Bro,
and
yeah.
he's doing very well for himself over there. And it sucks to see as he was having a resurgence during the preseason. You brought up Von Vele, and he absolutely should be in that role that Jordan Humphrey's in, because they're similar, play style, body type, but this dude doesn't drop a pass. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand why he's not being incorporated more. You got Troy Franklin getting more snaps. Let's get Vele in there. Let's make him a focal part of this game. You know what? We're a young team. We're trying to figure out what we want to build with.
Mm-hmm.
Just feed him, man. Let's see what we got in him. He's a little older. Use him while you can. But it just boggles my mind. I don't care if Jordan knows the offense, man. If he's not making plays and being detrimental to the team, ruining drives, opening drives at that, I just don't see how you could give him the amount of snaps that he's getting.
Yeah, I do think if he still becomes a liability, moving forward for this playoff push, I think that's something the coaching staff really has to look at and evaluate. You know, put him back on the practice squad. Let's look at changes in personnel here from the wide receiver group, because you need someone that can get open, someone that can you know catch the ball and hold on to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the Broncos are just struggling with that right now outside of Cortland Sutton.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got Todd Osendorf coming in with a question here. Thank you, Todd. We appreciate you. He says, curious too about our non-moves. I understand the Broncos are still rebuilding. However, if the Broncos took Hopkins, does that change the complexion of the offense? I would say it does, in the sense of you have someone that can get separation, that can get open with DeAndre Hopkins. Again, no one else outside of Cortland Sutton can get open on this team. And so with the addition of a DeAndre Hopkins, on the Broncos, that actually probably would open up even more opportunities for Sutton because a lot of the focus would be on double covering Nuke. Um so I think Bo Nix probably be able and Sean Payton probably be able to spread the ball a little bit more, down the field. You have that extra playmaker, you know, to count on. Like maybe even some of those fourth downs, Dylan, right, that they went for in the game last week. If you had somebody like a DeAndre Hopkins catching those would probably be converted. No, so you think of specific matchups, Todd, and you think of key plays and games, and if you had specific playmakers on the team in those key moments that you can rely on, that changes the complexion of the offense and potentially the outcome of some games. Again, I think it wouldn't have changed the outcome last week for sure, because I just think the Ravens are just a far better team than Denver. But some of those earlier games, if you had somebody like a Nuke Hopkins, that can definitely maybe change the complexion of the team and the offense for sure.
Yeah, it definitely would open up the offense, like you mentioned. He's making a lot of plays for the Chiefs right now, which is quite unfortunate. But and I'm a little jealous of that with our lackluster receiving core. But the way I look at it is, in terms of the non-moves for the Broncos, I think is the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I'm gonna sound like a real bummer here, probably, but can the Broncos make the playoffs? Yes. Can they make a deep run? I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
And I think they're better suited holding on to their draft picks, and building the team through free agency, through the draft, and just save your assets. And if this were a year where the Broncos were favored to be like maybe a 2 or 3 seed, I might make that move. But this is still a rebuilding year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the point in wasting the only one I would trade for, like say, we're in the first round, we're in the middle of the first round picking somewhere this year, and it's like, I don't really like any of these receivers. Maybe I spend a first round pick on a Garrett Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
someone who is a good wide receiver and is proven. He's already been in the league and he's still young. I definitely wouldn't do it on DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, he's just, especially for this team, he's a little older, and it's like you're not going to make a deep run. Not to be a bummer there, but I just don't think it makes sense for this team right now. I'd rather flesh out what we have, use our pieces. Hey, if we win, great. If we lose, it's about wins and learns this year, not wins and losses. So let's just stick with our young team, stick with what we got, and we'll assess in the off season.
Yeah, and again, should the Broncos have made a move at the trade deadline? I mean, it depends. Kind of depends on what the, I guess, what they're trying to do. Like, what's the goal? Is it just developing Bo? Is it making that deep playoff run? And I'm with you, Dylan. I think the Broncos saw it as, we can't make a deep playoff run. We can get to the playoffs. I just don't think a deep playoff run is for us this year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't want to have to sacrifice any, draft capital to get anyone. They probably like where this team is, but they want to still hold on to those assets so they can continue the building process. And in this upcoming draft, you have you have those receivers, you have good tight ends as well. Luther Burden, that's a name that's been floated out there. Isaiah Bond,
Mm-hmm.
Emeka Guba, so those are some receivers that the Broncos can look at. And yeah, I think it's probably good for them not to make that move. Because again, you shouldn't even be surprised, because they're not even promoting some of these folks from the practice squad. Again, Parham still on the practice squad. A.T. Perry. Um, so if that hasn't happened, it shouldn't be a surprise that they didn't go out and get someone
Mm-hmm.
to help. So
And this offense isn't one wide receiver away from being fixed, like you mentioned. We need to overhaul this wide receiver core, the tight ends, and the running backs. Like,
yeah,
if we were a wide receiver away, sure, but that's just not the case. This is a rebuilding team.
correct, correct. All righty. Let's see who else we have in the chat. And again, guys, no Scott tonight, so we are just going to kind of peruse and see who we have here. Let's see. Rodney Garcia, yep. PS2 versus D Hop. That is the marquee matchup. Well, one of them. I mean, because the Broncos will have to also worry about Mahomes himself, Chris Jones. There are a lot of different marquee matchups here, but yeah, I would say that's definitely one of the ones. And I think it's so refreshing to have, you know, a premier corner, Dylan, where you can just have one on one, the top corner against the top receiver. Like you don't have to worry about 2 or 3 men trying to deal with D Hop. Because I think at this point it's PS2 and D Hop. Now, really, all you have to worry about is Travis Kelsey. Now, I know Xavier Worthy is still, you know, a factor. I know he hasn't really been used as much recently, but he still does need to be accounted for. But we know that relationship, that rapport with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey is one that the Broncos definitely need to account for on defense.
Yeah, I mean, you could hope PS2 is shut down D Hop. That's he's older, but he's still a feisty wide receiver, and he's gonna get his catches. I don't care who he's going up against. But you brought up Travis Kelsey. Who are they putting on him?
Yeah.
Do you put Moss on him? Do you? I wouldn't
Probably
trust the
lock.
line.
You probably
Yeah,
have to put lock. Maybe probably mix it up. Maybe with a mix of Riley Moss slash
that'd be
PJ
more than
Lock.
one
Maybe
guy.
McMillan. Yeah, I think you're gonna have to kind of mix up the coverage there on
100%,
Kelsey.
because I don't fully trust the linebacker to stick with him. I'd rather have a safety on him, like you said, lock perhaps. Um, it's gonna be tough because obviously he hasn't been the dynamic tight end that we've known over the years, but when he needs to show up, he does. So in critical situations, when we need a touchdown, we need to convert this third down, he's always there for Mahomes. That's going to be a really tough matchup, and hopefully the Broncos can slow him down at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Thank you for coming in. And we have Todd Osendorf coming in. Thank you, Todd. He says, sad that no one even thinks of Dulcich as a viable tight end. Guy looked great coming out of school, but he has fallen so far since then. Yeah, Todd, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Um, when healthy, I mean the guy has talent. I mean, you saw it at UCLA. You've seen flashes when he's out on the field, but again, it's can't stay healthy. That's the big thing. And when he's out on the field, like what value is he providing? That's a problem. Like when the ball is thrown his way, can't catch it, and he's definitely not a blocker. So it's just one of those things where you have it's time to move on. Time to just rebuild that tight end room. Now, Lucas Kroll has been pretty solid, I would say, for the most part. Um, but I think that's one of those positions they look to in the draft. Um, again, I think just the weaponry, multiple positions groups on this team need to be reevaluated and built. And again, I do think tight end is one of those that they look to in the draft. But yes, it's very sad with Dulcich, especially you remember those key plays like that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You remember that game. I think it was his rookie year when he played the Chargers.
His first game, yeah.
Yeah, his first game. Yeah. So it's very sad, but just got to stay healthy. That's been the problem.
Yeah, I know there was some rumor of him getting traded. I had a hard time believing it
Yeah.
with how injured he was, limited games that he's played, and then he's been a healthy scratch. That's not very encouraging. He's going to stick around on this team. Maybe he probably gets another shot down the road the rest of the season. We'll see. There's going to be a lot of shuffling, I imagine. It is just disappointing. He just had this ability to find the open zones. He was deceptively quick. Like, you couldn't put a linebacker on him. He'd just lose him immediately. And it's a shame because we saw what he could be. Very similar to Baron Browning. Like, we saw what you could be. We know what you could be, but whether it be injuries or it's just a drop off in play, and Dulcich's case, just like he can't catch a cold and he can't block a doorway. Like, come on, man. This is your career here, and you're screwing up on all phases. So what good are you to this offense? And that's really saying something with the lack of firepower that they do have, being a healthy scratch.
Yeah, for sure. But again, thank you, Todd, for coming in. And then another comment here from Todd. Todd brings up some good points, everyone. So that's why we were bringing him up. He says, I anticipate some bubble screens, wheel routes, crosses, short hitches, and to get some rhythm going. Thoughts? Yeah. So I do envision those being used. Sure. So probably a lot of motion. And also I do look for the tight ends, because I've also noticed, Dylan, that one, I guess, weakness of the Kansas City Chiefs defense is the tight end. Like, they can't stop tight end. So this is an opportunity for your Lucas Kroll, your Adam Troutman, to kind of get more snaps and the balls thrown to them as well. But yeah, Todd, I do expect or anticipate a lot of those different variations in this offense to keep that Chiefs defense honest.
Yeah, and especially the screen game, you've seen Sean over and over try it, and we'll see if it works out. It kind of goes back to the lack of receiving talent once again. It's like, hey, you got to make a guy miss. You can't go down on first contact, and haven't really seen that thus far this season. So hopefully we can see some of that on some screens. I would love to see McLaughlin on some wheel routes out of the backfield. That'd be nice. But the thing is, too, how much time are you going to have to wait for that to develop with Chris Jones in your face? The premier defensive tackle, him and Dexter Lawrence, the two guys in the league that are just game changers at that position. So we'll have to see. Hopefully Sean gets creative. I don't need to see Bo catching a touchdown every week, but let's pepper some fun and interesting stuff in there. We're a young team. We're underdogs in most of these games. Just who cares?
We're playing with house money.
Rebuilding, yeah, house money, man. Throw something out there. Who cares?
Yeah, definitely. All right, we got Eric Flynn with a super sticker. Thank you for coming in, Eric. We appreciate it, my guy. And if you got a comment or a question, please drop it in the chat. All right, Dylan. So, any other keys to victory for this game? Any other notes, key matchups?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, actually. I'm pretty excited about this matchup. The Broncos defensive line against specifically the Chiefs interior, their guard and their centers. Easily the best interior line in the league with the Chiefs. But you have Zach Allen, who's been playing lights out. John Franklin Myers has been playing very good. He had a couple key plays last week, and they decided to keep DJ Jones, so he'll be sticking around. It's going to be a tough matchup. I really hope they can get some interior pressure, because that's the quarterback's least favorite thing in terms of pass rush. Obviously, we got some good guys coming off the edge and we blitz, but you want to get that pressure up the middle, force Mahomes to run around on that bum ankle that he seems to have. But it is a tough interior, and they're probably going to try and run the ball a lot there as well. That's a lot of the runs come up the middle with Kareem Hunt there, so it's going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be a real trench battle.
Yeah, you bring up the Chiefs' offensive line. That's a very solid unit, and especially that interior with Joe Tooney and Creed Humphrey. I think as far as centers for me, I think Creed Humphrey is probably easily to top 3. Center
Easily, yeah.
in the league. So it's going to be interesting how this defensive line of the Broncos attack that. And you mentioned Kareem Hunt, and that's one of my keys here is you got to try to slow down Kareem Hunt. Now, it's interesting how they use Kareem Hunt, because you don't see Kareem Hunt, as far as like yards per carry, it's not like an outrageous number. Like we're not talking 7-8 yards a clip, but it's so efficient in the sense of it's picking up the crucial 3 and 4 yards on first down to make third down a little bit more manageable. And so that's kind of how the Chiefs offense is kind of wearing out these defenses. Like I said, it's not flashy, but it's very efficient. So I think the Broncos really on defense have to think about how they can attack them and get them on first down. Also with that, just pressure Mahomes. I think it has to be that spy on Mahomes getting that pressure. I'm curious to see, the edge pressure specifically. Jonathan Cooper coming and attacking and up the middle. Want to see Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers and how they play this too. But slowing down Kareem Hunt. We talked about PS2 and DeAndre Hopkins. But again, there are going to be some opportunities for this defense for sure. And one of the things, another key, and this happened in the matchup last year at Denver, winning the turnover battle.
Yes.
They turned over the Chiefs, I want to say it was 4 or 5 times last year. So that's something, and I know Sean Payton has also mentioned it, that they have to be willing to, get these turnovers and then setting up the offense on short fields. But I would say, those are definitely some keys for the Broncos defense to really kind of attack what the Chiefs do on offense. And again, what the Chiefs do on offense, I look at it, guys, that you don't see Mahomes running wild. You don't see the deep passing a lot. But again, they're kind of like the new age New England Patriots, where everything is so methodical, so efficient. And you just have to find out what some of those weaknesses are and try to exploit.
Yeah, and Mahomes has been a turnover machine this year. It seems he throws, with the exception of last game, I believe he's thrown at least one pick in each game. So there's going to be some opportunities for these Broncos DBs and linebackers to get some interceptions, and hopefully we can see that. And one key that I need to see, and this is for the freaking referees, man. And this is not even just like, generally how they get favorable calls. I need to see Jawan Taylor. I need a ref specifically watching him. Yes. Oh my God, what he gets away with every week. And I see people in the comments and, videos on, Twitter or whatever saying, oh, well, he's actually the most penalized. It's like, well, he should have more. He should have more flags. It's so frustrating watching him jump early almost every snap. But when the game is on the line and the Chiefs offense is rolling, they get the red zone, the refs, they just, I don't see anything. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. So that's just something they're going to have to deal with. You don't just have to beat the Chiefs, you got to beat the refs. And that's the thing about the NFL. If you're leaving it up to the refs to win the game or win or lose the game, you probably weren't going to beat them anyway. They're just that good of a team. They find ways to win, and you have to be up by multiple scores, it seems, to have any sort of chance there.
Yeah, I just feel like you have to be a few steps ahead when it comes to the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to outcoach Andy Reid. That's really what it boils down to. And you're right when it comes to the refs and how they handle the Chiefs. Like there's so many calls that should be made that they just don't make. Yeah, especially on Jawan Taylor. I mean, I go back through games and I'm counting the number of offsides. I'm counting the number of false starts. And I'm like, where's the flag, guys? Like, what are we doing? You just letting them just go? Even some holding. They let that slide on the offensive line. So again, that's one of the things the Broncos obviously can't control. But you know, uh, the Broncos, at least from the Chiefs' perspective, but the Broncos definitely need to make sure that they don't have mistakes themselves, right? Like Garrett Bowles, we don't want to see holding calls and things of that nature. McGlinchey false starts, so that's kind of where the Broncos really have to play disciplined football as well to beat the Chiefs.
Definitely.
All right, so let's look at the time here. All right, we had 46 minutes. Man, time flies here. Let's see who else we have in the chat here. Got Ronnie Garcia. Thank you, Ronnie. Says we don't have Simmons anymore to pick off Mahomes, who's going to be that next guy. Brandon Jones. Yep. So Brandon Jones is one. PJ Locke is another. So we do have the safeties, and you've seen it again, not in bunches, but you've seen Brandon Jones. I think earlier this year make a few plays and came up with a few picks. So yeah, those guys are going to have to step up and kind of create those turnovers as well. And you might even see another one from PS2. But yeah, that secondary has to get going when it comes to forcing turnovers.
Yeah, Patrick's picked off. Sorry, Surtain has picked off Patrick Mahomes a handful of times here now. So, if he's smart, he'll stay away from him. But you're going to take your chances when D Hop is the receiver there. So it's going to be an awesome matchup to watch those two. But I think PS2 can get one this game. I really do. And Brandon Jones, yeah, like you mentioned here, he's been solid as well in the turnover department. I want to see Riley Moss get another one. Honestly, he I do worry a little bit about him. It seems with the speedier receivers, obviously no one was covering Zay Flowers last week, but I worry if Worthy's on him unless he can jam him at the line. I worry about that, but yeah, there's gonna be opportunities for these turnovers, and the Broncos defense needs to prove that last week was just an anomaly, just a one game thing. That's an intense offense to play against. In this one, you do have Andy Reid, offensive genius, probably the best play caller in the league right now. It's not going to be easy, but I think the Broncos can get a takeaway or two in this game.
Yeah. Yes, for sure, for sure. And again, thank you, Rodney, for coming in with that question. We appreciate it. And as you mentioned here, yep, we just spoke about Xavier Worthy will be target. Yes. So I do expect, just when he's not being used as much, this will be the game that they use Xavier Worthy.
Yep.
Because, a lot of that focus will be on, stopping Kareem Hunt and obviously DeAndre Hopkins. So, all righty. So, going to get to some injuries here, and then we'll get into our predictions. So, for the injuries for the Broncos side of the house, Jalen Turner Yell is out. Luke Wattenberg is questionable, and then Juice Sanders is out too. And for the Chiefs, uh, Tershawn Wharton, the defensive lineman, is questionable, and Juju Smith-Schuster is out. All right, Dylan, score predictions. So, who do you have winning this division matchup tomorrow?
Well, the Broncos got a pretty big wake up call in terms of whether they're going to be a contender or a pretender uh, this year, and obviously they get. We mentioned earlier in the show they can make the playoffs. That doesn't necessarily mean you are a contender. You're not going to make this deep playoff run. And walking into Arrowhead just a week later, it's a tough ask for an offense that doesn't have much firepower. And you got a rookie quarterback. It's a hostile environment. Those Chiefs fans are loud. And then you got Steve Spagnuolo calling that defense, and he eats those rookie quarterbacks alive. And obviously, I know we're very partial to Bo. He's our guy, but Spagnuolo's proven time and time again this defense is going to cause a lot of problems for any quarterback, not just rookies. And it's just this championship pedigree from the Chiefs. I just feel they'll find a way to win. I think it will be close. I went with the Chiefs 23, Broncos 17.
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, for the Broncos, I mean this is it's a difficult stretch. On the road yet again in enemy territory with the Chiefs, and I do think coming out of that game in Baltimore, this team is hungry, especially on defense. I think it left a bad taste in their mouth, and they just want to go up an Arrowhead and wreck shop. So, with that said, I do see a lot of different opportunities where this defense can turn over Mahomes. I also think that Sean Payton's gonna have somewhat of a solid offensive game plan here to kind of keep Spagnolia and kind of counteract any surprises you may see from him. So with that, I actually have the Broncos winning.
Okay.
I have a Broncos victory. I feel it. That they're going to come out pissed off. Really, how the Ravens came out last week when they lost to the Browns the prior week.
Mm.
I do have a Broncos victory. So my final score: Broncos 23, Chiefs 21. Um, so yeah,
There we go,
there you go.
man. I
Mm-hmm.
like it. Yeah, when I was making my pick, man, I'm like, I could see this going either way. I just figure, I'll give it to the home team here. But I very sound logic. I could definitely see the Broncos pulling one out here.
Yeah, but it's funny because I think to your point on the playoffs, and even if the Broncos lose this game, guys, um, and depending on what happens with the Buffalo Bills and the Indianapolis Colts, I mean the Broncos can still have the number 7 seed.
Mm-hmm.
If the Colts lose, um, then the Broncos still have the number 7 seed. So, you know, even being at 5-5, wouldn't be a bad thing. But obviously, they'll have to have good games down the stretch um, to really kind of solidify being a wild card team. But yeah, I think this team is playing with house money, and you know, if they can beat the Chiefs again, I think that'll go a long way for this team because Dylan, looking at the AFC as a whole, there are a lot of bad teams in the AFC.
Yeah.
So the Broncos are a little lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the only team that really scares me, Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
the Cincinnati Bengals are a little bit now. They just came off that loss to the Baltimore Ravens, but I mean, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase just went off.
Yeah.
They just went off. And that matchup is coming down for your Broncos later on in the season. And it could determine, depending on how the Bengals do with some of these upcoming games, who's in the wild card. um, but yeah, again, I like the position that the Broncos are in for sure.
Yeah, man. I'm just win or lose tomorrow. Just be competitive. I want to see some fire. I want to see them stay in this game. I don't want to get left behind. 41-10 is just awful to watch. I mean, sitting there and watching that whole game, just oh god, rough. No one wants to see that. So just be competitive, man. Stick with them, even if you lose. Just show that fire. You're a young team. If you can, if this young team can keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't care. Obviously they've had their offensive struggles and whatnot. If they can keep up, that's great in my book. I mean, hey, you're rebuilding. You can build off of that. I know it's there's no good losses and all this stuff, but like I said, wins and learns for this team, and that's what it's all about.
For sure, for sure. All right, guys. Well, that concludes tonight's episode. It was a pleasure to have all of you for tonight's discussion. If you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, and share Orange and Blue Beaver Podcast across all other platforms. We'd greatly appreciate it. And if you have not already, make sure you follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. I am at Ron White NFL. And my co-host here is at Dylan Vaughn Arts MHH. And of course, just tweet us with any questions, comments. Um, we will be watching the game, so we're we'll be there answering and commenting with you. But before we go, Dylan has a few people to shout out that join us tonight, and I'll let Dylan take it off.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining in tonight. Unfortunately, Facebook was not cooperating with us. We've been having some issues here for the last couple of shows, so we do apologize for that. But thank you all for joining. As always, we want to give a special shout out to a few people in particular who gave us a little extra tonight. The Papa Bear, David McGiller, I thank you so much, my friend. Always good to see you in here, and just appreciate you keeping the optimism around here. Keep that 10-7. I mean, you haven't wavered yet. We really appreciate that. And Eric Flynn coming in with a super sticker. Thank you so much, Eric. Always good to see you in here as well. And I'll hand it back to you, Ron.
Again, guys, thank you for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. And we will see you all next week. Please enjoy the game tomorrow. And with that, go Broncos.
Go Broncos.